Okay, can everybody hear us? We are live on YouTube as well. Okay, now where's the few ones?
I think that, you know. You might just want to move it. We should do this.
No, we can't mute it.
No, her.
Okay, are we okay?
We're still getting it.
Might want to just turn the volume up.
For us, but why would I turn the volume off for us? Then we won't have our Zoom. Are we okay now?
Yeah,
I mean.
we won't hear them when
Okay,
they speak.
okay. Somebody did something.
What was that?
Then we won't hear anybody who speaks if we turn on volume.
Well, it's.
I think they figured it out.
Can everybody hear us? Anatole, can you hear?
Yep.
Okay, great, thank you.
We get started?
Okay,
Okay,
now you can do your thing.
All right. Good evening, everyone. This is the first, this is the September meeting of Queens CB2's Land Use and Housing Committee. September 18th. We have a very full agenda tonight. We had a slight, it seemed like last year we had a lull in ULIP applications, but they're sort of suddenly come roaring back. So I'm Christine Hunter, the committee chair. This is Deb Markell, the district manager, and is someone here?
Dorado, my assistant.
Okay. Is someone here to speak to the landmark application, 2133 45th Avenue? Okay, is nobody online either? All right, I think we'll go to the next then. Is somebody here speak? You guys are here for Northern Boulevard,
Yes.
right? You want to introduce yourselves and just give us an update?
Sure. Do you want me to go through a presentation or just give you an update on it?
I'm okay with an update. I feel like we've seen this application a lot of
Okay,
times, so.
Sure. So basically, Sandy and Anostu representing the office of Gerald Caliendo Architect, and I'm joined by Damian Corbett, the general manager for Lincoln. He will be the general manager at this location, and he's been the general
You know,
manager
do
at
you want to
other
speak from over
locations.
here so people on Zoom can see you as well? Or
Sure.
at least over here on this side. Just so.
Well, if we're not gonna do a presentation, I don't know that we need to have that, actually. Because we did update the plans based on the meeting that we had with your committee and also what we had, the comments that we had from BSA.
Application.
Yeah, if you want to just put the site plan up and point out whatever,
Sure, it's a.
whatever changes you've made.
Patrick, can you see us, Sandy?
I
Yes,
share.
That's
her
it.
camera's on and we're looking at her and,
I'm sharing the
Surprise,
screen.
Jack. Okay.
No, can you see
Sorry about
this,
that.
Sandy?
So do you see, I shared my screen.
Where?
Here we are.
Yes.
Okay, Sandy, hang on. Okay, I just gave you privileges, so you should be able to share your screen.
Yeah, I did.
You have to say share.
I just say
Sure, of
Yeah,
course. Yeah.
it's kind of uncomfortable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, we didn't mean to torture
I would
you.
unshare and then share again because it didn't come up.
So we did meet with you back in June, and since then, we've had the initial hearing at the Board of Standards and Appeals. We listened to your comments and incorporated those suggestions that your committee made along with what the BSA asked us to do, and we've updated our plans, which I can share with you here. So our initial hearing, as I said, was on July 30th. The next hearing will be on October 21st or 22nd. We have a submission date of October 3rd. We did provide these revised plans to you back in July, but I have them here. Basically, the board wanted us to elaborate on the operation of the business, and we wanted to make clear to your committee, as we did to the board, that there are no used cars being sold at this location. There's no service or at this location, and customers do not drop off their cars or get any service or pick up the cars at this location. That's handled, either the vehicle will be delivered to their business or to their home. And if it requires service, again, it's either picked up at their home or business. There's no test drives done. But that's, if someone wants to do a test drive, same method, it's done by delivery to a customer's home or office. The showroom cars are minimal. They're not sold from the floor. Basically, you can check the models online, and there's some kiosks within the showroom, and then you make an appointment when you want to go in, look at the cars that are on display, but it's a new type of model of selling cars. So there are very few cars. It's a small showroom. There's no parts, no service, no testing. And yeah, like I said, the screens show the models, and this facility doesn't really allow for a large amount of cars. One of the things that the board asked us was, and your committee asked, if we can put as much landscaping on the site as possible. And so we looked at it, and we can look at the site plan. We're proposing 2 street trees on 60th Street, and then these planters all around the perimeter of the building. And I can show you the rendering, which will show it much better.
Yeah, this is hard to read. but-
Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
scroll down to the rendering. Which we also updated, because I think the last time we were here, you saw a rendering which showed the original proposal, which at the time was a rezoning. So this building goes right up to the property line. There's no open space at the rear or adjacent to any other buildings. So this is looking at 50. So we're looking at 58th Street.
You're looking on 58th Street towards Northern Boulevard?
No, you're looking straight onto, but you're standing on 58th Street and you're looking, that's the facade there. So you have the overhead door and you have the showroom at the corner. Yeah, Northern is.
Right, that's what I meant, yes, okay,
Okay.
okay. So I see a few trees up there by the, is that right? It's a little-
So I'll go to the next one. The trees really, so there's a lot happening on this sidewalk, so there, unfortunately, there are utilities, there are curb cuts, so the only
Right.
place where we could accommodate trees is actually on 60th Street. And we're proposing 2 trees, and you could see here, this rendering looking at 60th Street. So I'm on the corner of 60th and Northern, and you can see the planters, the 2 trees we're proposing, and then that drive-through area where the cars would be brought in from there. We're not bringing cars in from Northern Boulevard. We want to avoid that. So that's the reason it was designed this way.
So if people drive to your showroom to look at your cars, where do they park? They have to find parking
There,
in the neighborhood?
yes, I mean, the most we could accommodate is maybe 1 or 2 cars in there, but they would find parking on the street, or they would come through mass transit. They wouldn't, we don't have customer parking.
And remind us what kind of cars are these electric vehicles?
Yes,
All of them that are being sold out of here, 100%?
yes.
Okay.
So this third rendering shows the landscaping we're proposing around the perimeter. With these planters, and this is, we try to maximize the landscaping.
Are you able to zoom in? I'm sorry, or Kenny, can you point out where you see?
Well, I'm assuming that there's these planters here. Yeah,
I see.
I'll zoom in.
Michael has a hand up. I don't
There you go.
have a question.
What?
Michael has a.
Oh,
hand up.
okay. Okay, now I see.
Oh, 50/50. Do you want to clarify that?
Clarify that it's not fully electric, it's 50/50.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I zoomed in a little, you could see the landscaping better, this.
Okay. So something else. Michael, do you have a question?
Yeah, it pertains a bit to something that was shown at the beginning. So I noticed that the slide said that because of the zoning, commercial uses are not allowed on the site. But isn't it the case that this was formerly a commercial site that has been vacant? Is
It
that
was
the
non-conforming site. It was a
Right.
restaurant.
Correct. And with City of Yes for Economic Opportunity, which the city council passed, wouldn't commercial uses that are allowed in C1 districts be allowed on the site? That wouldn't include a car dealership, but that would include like a restaurant or a grocery store. So I just wanted to confirm, since this is an application for a variance, I wanted to be clear about what are all the alternative uses that would be allowed under the zoning. And it seems to me, I could be wrong, I want to confirm if this is true, but it seems to me that since this is a vacant former commercial site in a residential zone, that some but not all commercial uses would be allowed.
Yeah, I remember thinking that when we were going over this is the City of Yes for Economic Opportunity.
Correct, which has been passed, like the housing one has not been voted on, but the economic one was passed. And I remember you mentioned this in June, Christine, which is why I'm raising it. But
So does that modify your application to the BSA? Because it's no longer.
No, because this is an R5 zoning district. This is a residential zoning district. So in order to put, the previous commercial use was there, it was grandfathered, it existed there, but it's been vacant for over 10, I think maybe 20 years, at least 10 years. So that use is gone. In order to put a commercial use back here, you'd have to go apply for a variance.
Well, what we looked at was not the final, I mean, what we have, what our board reviewed was not the final version of City of Yes for Economic Opportunity, but I know that there was language in there about grandfathered uses being allowed to remain and not, because I thought about this exact situation, but I don't know, Katie, do you know?
I don't know exactly how it applied to this property, but I do know what provision you're talking about where if it was formerly a commercial use and it's supposed to be able to use as a commercial use. So I don't know what the process is, like, I guess I could like check back on this.
Well, you have an attorney here, right? You really should check because it's brand new, this.
Yes, we're familiar with it. The City of Yes was adopted in June for economic opportunities. The housing will be in December, most likely of this year. But in terms of this site, it's in a residential zone, it's R5. The only thing that could be developed as of right is a community facility or housing, which we showed as of right plan. In order to have a commercial use here, this has been vacant for decades, so to bring the restaurant back, I don't believe you could do that under city of yes. You'd have to apply for a variance, and the restaurant that was there was not successful. It closed down, it went out of business. It's been trying to lease it for other uses for a very long time, and we're not able to get any lease or any tenant or any other commercial use there. It has a long history. So I don't think in this.
I would just really like to get clarity on this point, because from what I'm reading, the previous rule was that you could reactivate commercial uses if they were vacant for less than 2 years.
Right.
And the proposal that City of Yes passed removed this less than 2 years provision. So it's just if there was a vacancy in a commercial property in a residential area. So I would just like to get clarity on whether or not C1 commercial uses are allowed under the City of Yes for economic opportunity. Because like it seems to me that they are. I may be wrong, but I would just love to get clarity on that. So maybe that's something that DCP could help us with.
Can absolutely take a look at it. I think Michael is correct, but you know, there's always caveats, so I want to make sure that it would apply here.
Right. Are there other questions or any other changes from what we saw in June or July?
So, to the plan, basically, those were the changes. There was some discussion about possibly reducing one of the curb cuts on 58th Street, the existing curb cut, making it smaller. And so we said 14 feet, because it's currently, I believe, almost 18 feet. So that was the board, the BSA made, one of the commissioners made that suggestion to reduce the size of the curb cut. And that was basically that they wanted us to further bolster the argument on how the unique shape of the lot and size make it very hard to develop this property as a right. And we did a uniqueness study, neighborhood study.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw that. That really shows, and I can share that with you too.
Well, I think we understand
Yeah,
that. So in terms of your process at the BSA, they're gonna meet October 21st or October 22nd, you'll be calendared again. Do we have a deadline that they need? I mean, they want a recommendation from our
Yeah.
board, and I guess I'm trying to understand that calendar.
I've made them aware of the meeting that we've had in June and this evening's meeting, and then you had mentioned that there will be the full board meeting on October 10,
Right.
your public hearing. So our next BSA hearing is on the 21st or 22nd, so that would be after your full board. And they're very much aware of it. They do want your recommendation, and they would not close the case without it. They wouldn't make a decision. We only had one hearing on this, so this is our second hearing. They would not make a decision without your recommendation.
Are there any other questions?
You know, I just want to stress that this part, I understand the great need for housing. This part of Northern Boulevard is very much auto related.
We understand.
Yeah, and if you look at the uniqueness and neighborhood character study,
Yeah,
it clearly shows that.
okay.
Okay, thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you. We'll see you on the tenth.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Do we need to provide a committee representation?
I believe we do, but I don't think we need to do it right. I mean, should we?
Maybe it needs to happen before the 10th. Probably should, right?
Yeah, no, at this meeting, yes. I just don't know if we wanted to hear everybody's presentation and then do our. Yeah, do our business. So does anybody here for the landmark application for 2133 45th Ave? Huh. Well,
Thank
I mean,
It's like,
rear yard addition, I don't remember seeing this, and rear yard addition is something, it can be something significant from a landmark point of view.
And then this one on the city.
What?
Yeah, this is the one, remember we.
Oh, this is Long Island
Yeah,
City.
it is on
Law.
the vote on it.
Okay,
And they were showing, we were asking about like how far out into the.
yeah, I'm sorry, I couldn't really, I
Shadow.
yeah.
I was assuming it was.
We, like neighbors testified and stuff.
Okay.
right.
So did we make a recommendation on this previously?
I think we had concerns.
Yeah, I feel
Very
very.
concerned, yeah.
Yeah, we did.
So they haven't come back.
Okay, well,
Is it calendar? Do we know?
this is June 20th. They sent something June 20th. Did they know, did you contact them? Did they know they were on the agenda?
You said that we. Debbie, can you just check and see if there's calendars on the, for landmark?
All right.
What did they send, what did they send on June 20th? Like an update or anything?
The attached presentation. Sent the-
Sent a presentation of.
Yeah, we thought it was too big, right?
Yeah. In general.
But I think we need a comparison. We need to look at what they did to present previously.
Right.
All right, so. So moving ahead. 4939 Van Dam Street, D map. Is anybody here for that?
Yes, someone is. You see me?
Thank you.
Hi.
Good night.
Hi.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know.
Share it, right?
Oh. Want me to sit or stand?
It is.
You can do whatever you're more comfortable doing, please.
All right.
You've done the work in there. No, well, I sent whatever it's called, JPEG something to the community board, and I have someone that's been there on that. He probably can do whatever, he's my techie guy. All right.
I'm on.
If you wanna,
Bingo, the lower right hand corner.
Got it.
so,
I'm gonna give you
This is-
Finn
this is-
sharing privileges.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Does everyone see the screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Great.
okay, you all ready?
Yep.
My name is Raymond Levin. I'm with the law firm of Eric Feinstein. We are representing JPD Realty that owns two buildings fronting on Van Dam Street. I guess we can go to this doesn't show too much. The next one doesn't show much either, but it's in an M21 zone, and it's behind his property. Go to the next one, Bill, if you could. Yeah, so behind his property, which is it has a blue line around it. And then the red line, the red area behind it is owned by the city of New York. It was part of when they built the ramp to get onto the Queens Midtown Expressway. That was part of the property that they took, I guess, and they didn't use. It's overgrown, it's an eyesore, sometime home of the homeless, and And JPB, which has those two buildings fronting the street, woke up one morning and said, can I buy it from the city? And we've been processing a demapping application, which will take it off the city map. And then it will be available for purchase by the adjoining owner, which is us. As you can see, before we leave this slide, everything around it is commercial. Across the street is what's it called? Was it down here someplace? It's a mini storage. And then next to that is a Tesla dealer or servicing little station. To the north of us is a Dunkin' Donuts and gas stations. To the east is this piece of property and a ramp that goes from grade at Van Dam up to 35 feet high, which is where the expressway is. And to the south of us is the expressway and Borden Avenue. So we're sort of isolated. Let's go to the next slide. Let's see, yeah, there you go. So that's basically what we're looking to purchase, is that area that's outlined in green. We own two warehouse buildings. JPG bought them in 1998. Has operated them basically in conjunction with various food operations. If you are old enough, Ray Barry, this is his son, owns his property. Ray Barry owned a chain of pizza parlors in Manhattan, and the facades were painted with the colors of the Italian flag. So if you remember that, that's his lineage. And this was used in conjunction with that back in the day. Those places, I think, pandemic probably killed those off. Right now, they are leased to Hungry Panda and another Chinese kitchen. They don't have any service here. They basically provide for everyone who comes on their little bikes and delivers you the food. So that's what's there now. Let's go to the next one. What's the next one show? Just the same thing. So what his plan is for the future is to take the one-story, and we'll show you some pictures of what the buildings look like. Take the one-story building and keep that with food preparation, build a small addition on this two-story building, and use this area that he's going to purchase as an outdoor eating space. He's hopeful over time that if this catches on, obviously this has to become a destination kind of place, because it is not exactly a foot traffic area, if you know it. Hopefully over time he will be able to take the larger first floor of the two-story building and make that into a sit-down restaurant indoors. The second floor of the two-story building is his offices, and I think some offices for the tenants. And what's next? I think we have pictures. Yes, that's the two-story building. The ramp to get onto the expressway starts right there on your left. The little blue part of the first floor of that two-story building is where he would build the sort of bar service area for the outdoor dining. As I said, the second floor of that building is currently office space, and the first floor is this food delivery service. Next. This is looking from the other direction. The one-story warehouse has the red roof. That's also currently being used by food delivery services. Between the two properties is a parking area, which currently has about 12 cars. It's also the entrance to the two-story building. There's a curb cut for the one-story building on Van Dam Street. Next. And here's how you get to that back area. Since he doesn't own it, he can't fence it off. So folks who want to access it, they can. And they have, and it's one of the reasons why we would like to own it, besides putting it to some good use. Next slide. That's what it looks like in the back there. Next. Another shot of the two-story building, and the green space would be part of what he would acquire. Is there one more? No. Okay. So here in a bigger shot, you can see the warehouse on the right. That will become food prep. It's currently food prep. It'll remain food prep, except not for delivery, but for servicing that space in the rear, which is outdoor dining tables. And on the left corner, he's taking that part of this building and putting a little entranceway to get into the back and a little bar area and bathrooms. The larger gray area is the bigger of his two property, bigger warehouse. And at some point, hopefully, he hopes that this area that is notion of starting up a food business would catch on, and he'd make that into a sit-down restaurant. So next. This sort of outlines the two areas that would initially be used to service the sit-down area, which is the property that he's looking to purchase from the city. Next, is there a next? Yes. Oh, well, this is the technical map. The map was approved. It was signed by the borough president. It's been vetted by the city DOT, state DOT. There will ultimately be a mapping agreement that goes with the demapping. The mapping agreement will require that there be a 15-foot distance between the ramp and the property that he's going to acquire, so that they can, do repairs to the ramp should they need it. And there will be a restricted declaration if, in fact, he does something other than what he's planning to do. If he decides to build another floor, maybe on one of his buildings, there's a restricted declaration as to where his ventilation has to be, things like that. So, so that's where we are. We've been pursuing this with the city for a couple of years. The only other thing I have to say is that the drawings were prepared by city planning. And so if anyone, city planning wants to sue me for plagiarism, I admit it.
So I just want to get one thing clear. The reason this is not called a land disposition, but it's called demapping is that this area is within the mapped street. Is that correct?
This is within, yeah, the area that was mapped as street when they were building that
Okay.
ramp. And if you can see, when the city acquires property to build things, they acquire it based on tax lots usually. So sometimes they acquire tax lots that are more than what they need. And that's what happened here. They acquire some.
But generally, there's also a mapping of the street width itself, which it seems like this is
No,
beyond, but.
This
so
is,
is that
this is-
also-
this is part of the width of the street.
Oh, so this is part of the width.
This is part of the Gale is over here,
Okay,
right? So it's sort of,
But
but what's
Yeah.
left, what will be left of the map street is what is the ramp.
right, okay.
What else can I say about it? No, that's about it. Now, in terms of the demapping closing of the street comes with it the ability to acquire it. So the acquisition is not a separate action. It's built into the demapping.
Okay. Lucy?
Yeah, you do an appraisal?
The city will right now, the city doesn't do a heck of a lot to help you until it's approved, until the mapping is approved, because it could be a mapping agreement, which doesn't start until it's approved. And there's gonna be an appraisal. The appraisal has to be within 6 months of when you're gonna purchase it. So they usually don't do that until a mapping agreement. We have a while to go, I think, I hope my client isn't on there, but we have a while to go.
Has your client done any due diligence in terms of
In terms of what?
valuing the site?
It's impossible to do. I've done a number of projects with the city. They refused to show you the appraisal that they did. So, I'm just doing one now, which I think the value is zero, they want $1 million. So I can't tell.
Can you do like a broker's opinion of value?
You can. We haven't. He owns the property next door. No one else is gonna buy it. So whatever the price comes out to be, he'll buy it or he won't. I'm assuming it'll be something reasonable, but I don't know.
And does the remapping require that there's nothing built upon the site? Is it
No.
a given?
No, it's not a given.
So it could potentially be built upon with.
Sure, it's an M2 site, which is a 2 FAR for light manufacturing, and certain commercial uses.
So it could have a feature itself.
Yeah, sure. And, but, you know, in fact, part of the environmental is to look at what would reasonably be the worst, the quote unquote, worst case. And the worst case shows some development there, but that's not not his business. It's not what he wants to do, but he could. I mean, there was a question on the other matter about what could happen. And said, yes, there could build some structure. There'd have to be setbacks from the road and things like that, but yeah.
Are his current buildings as of right? I mean, they're compliant to the current zoning?
Yeah.
Or they're not
back then-
overbuilt? Yeah.
No, they're not overbuilt, no.
Okay, all right. Kenny? Yeah.
Yeah, there was, one of the photos had a walkway, like a sidewalk that seemed to, was sort of in the grassy area, it didn't look so great. I was just trying to figure out if that went somewhere or.
The only sidewalk is off Borden. I mean, because here there's no sidewalk on the ramp, right? So the only sidewalk is Borden and it goes around. So on Borden, can you show the first slide with the powerful under the ramp?
Yeah, it's underneath the ramp.
Keep going. Next. No, back one. Back one. There you go. That's Borden Avenue.
So the sidewalk going that.
Going
way.
that way is
It's
Borden
along
Avenue, and then it curves a little and ends. It ends with the next slide. So the next slide is where if you kept walking, that's what you end up with.
Walking away.
Walking, yeah.
Walking east.
Yes, correct.
So it just ends.
Yeah, yes, it just ends and then people have created a path of
I was just trying to figure out if there's any value to that as a passage.
it doesn't get you between the wall of his building and we can't see it in this picture, but the ramp going up to the highway, so.
Anatole, sorry, you had your hand up.
Thanks, Christine. I was wondering, like, I'm just trying to think, like, who else would use it. So, sorry if I'm asking you to repeat yourself. It's for an outdoor dining area, right?
Correct. Not to be, his intention isn't to build on it. It's to clear it up, secure it, and I guess to some extent, obviously to put it to some use, but also to prevent problems behind his buildings. I mean, obviously, right now you could go and if you wanted to break into Hungry Panda, I guess you could.
But
It's
But for what you said, if this demapping and your acquisition of the site goes through, you would be able to build, I mean, there's no restriction on building it, so in a future use, it could be built.
correct. Someone
And-
could take all of the property, right? Take the existing buildings, and take it all down and
And build
build
something different.
something
Yeah,
else
yeah,
that
yeah.
ends on, but you can see what's around it, so,
Right, but I think the question, and I don't know if other people are also. Yeah.
Sorry, I had another question, if I may. So it would be an outdoor dining area, so an extension of the Hungry Panda kitchen, right? So,
Well, what the Hungry Kitchen wouldn't be there, our client would operate it, but yeah, it would be an extension of the kitchen that's currently in that space, correct?
got it. So like the retail, like restaurant part. Okay. And okay, so that would open it up to like the public storage and some of the other businesses around there. Um, uh, I don't have too much of a objection to this, but if we could keep some of the, try to think of a happy medium between also like maintaining some green space, because I mean, I don't know if the shrubbery over there is not conducive to hanging out in, but yeah, I would I would probably encourage keeping some of the greenery, or incorporating it in a future design.
Well,
Thanks.
I agree, and I mean, I think this is a piece of city-owned property in an area where there's no green, where there's very little other city-owned property, so, and I understand that it's an awkward piece of land, and I understand why it's a problem for the adjacent owners right now, but I do wonder if there are other more,
The city has not maintained it
no,
since the
look,
road was built.
I understand that, but that doesn't mean the land doesn't potentially have potential, and I'm thinking more, especially in terms of green infrastructure, or, I don't know. I just have to ask the question before we get rid of.
Nick had a
Yes,
question?
all right.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions, kind of related and some not. First of all, obviously, you're presenting it with this idea of having outdoor. One concern is obviously they're gonna do an environmental. This is a big industrial area, could be contaminants underground, et cetera, et cetera. Do we know anything about any of that yet?
Yes, we've done an environmental review.
know.
And since we're not disturbing the ground, we didn't do much about ground stuff. But air and noise we've done, and there are going to be some restrictions on if in fact there is a future development. The current development doesn't need any restrictions for air and noise, but if future it got a little bigger or whatever, got close to the road, there will be a restrictive declaration which limits what you can do vis-a-vis air and noise.
And through the process, if they demap this, is it automatically only offered to your client, or can anyone in the public say, oh, we want to own it, we want to buy that? Or,
No one in the public can do that. No.
nobody, only you, only your.
We're the adjacent owner. I mean,
So that's the way it works.
the first offer is always to the adjacent owner, and in this case, since we're the ones who are applying for the mapping, comes to us if we want it, yes.
Okay.
Well, also, it's the only frontage, if I'm reading it right, of the lot is on the ramp. So there's no real way to access the lot.
Right.
Nick had a question.
Nick?
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
First of all, I just want to compliment, this is a very clear presentation. It's an awkward space, and I have a very good sense of where this is. Thank you for doing such a good job of showing where it is. I have only one question related to just length of ownership. How long has this family, first of all, grew up eating Ray Bari pizza? How long has this family owned this site?
1998.
Since 98. Okay, and when did this process start?
This process started in, well, let me see, we met in person with city planning, so it had to be before the pandemic is when it started. When it was first filing, which takes a while. The first filing was in December of 22, I think, but we met with them probably just before the pandemic hit, when John Young was there. I mean, it's been a lot of changes in the last couple of years.
Excellent. All right, last question. Is this area in the 1LIC study area, like context area?
I know it's an IBZ.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it's in the study area.
I don't believe it is.
I don't think any of them.
It's not.
Gotcha. Okay, that's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
Yeah, there are a number of catering facilities in this community board that have had issues. Late night operations and, just rowdy behavior, gunshots, things like that. I mean, that's a concern if there's a bar and it's an isolated space near the, the Long Island Expressway. Well, it's not the expressway, whatever that ramp is. To the-
Yeah, it is,
Yeah,
it's,
it's the expressway, right?
Long Island Expressway becomes
Yeah,
the,
right.
yes.
So, I mean, that's a concern for me personally. It's an isolated spot. You're gonna have people going there, like, I would, if it was gonna be a food use
Yeah.
and an outdoor dining, I'd certainly wanna know more about things like the hours of operation and who's gonna do it. And I know you're not there yet and you haven't even acquired the site, but those are the kind of concerns as a community board we would have.
I would imagine that would come before us again with the apply for a liquor license.
It would come in front of city services, but my question is, piggybacking on that is, who is, like, I would be concerned about a business there, because I live in Long Island City, and I don't think I would go there to eat.
I
mean,
know,
maybe it'll change, but
I
right
know
now.
it's, I know it's,
Yeah, that was my question too, like, what was the thinking behind this, like, why, who do they expect to come to this business of outdoor dining off the ramp?
I don't. I don't think that they've done a marketing study. He's owned this property for a number of years. His family and he have run restaurants. I assume, I'm speaking for myself on this. I assume that he sees for a relatively small investment, besides buying the property and securing the area behind his buildings, for a relatively small investment, he can see whether it works.
Like,
So
he can pivot if he realizes that it doesn't work.
right now, he's using the property as for lease to people who are doing food businesses and delivering food, right? So the biggest space is gonna stay that way until it works or it doesn't work. And the smallest space, which he's gonna use, it can always be turned back to that use. So I mean, but like I said, that's my, I've never asked him, I've never said to him, you're crazy, why are you doing this? So, I mean, he's the client, not just the lawyer.
The other question I had really quickly was, I think you mentioned in passing that the current tenants, is the plan that those tenants would not be there anymore when this actually happens? So like.
One of
would have to leave?
them would,
Okay.
the one that's in the bigger space.
Okay, which is
And the
currently
one,
what?
it has a name, I
Okay.
can't pronounce the
Okay.
name. It's not, I know that Hungry Panda is in the smaller space and then the other one, I'm sorry. I don't know.
Some other.
Both of them service, Chinese food, whether it's to individuals or restaurants, right? So, the smaller space he would use to service the outdoor space.
So if this goes through as planned, he would be basically like asking that tenant to leave.
And he would, right, and
But
then
it
he would
is-
have, whether he would, I don't know whether they would be the same employees or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. They're all on leases, their leases run out. so.
Right.
Lisa,
Did you say how many square feet it is?
it's at 7,682.
7,682 is the area that we're buying. The smaller of the two warehouses is 4,200, I think.
Yeah.
And the larger is like 13, almost 14,000 square feet. So those are how big those are.
Yeah,
But,
so it
but
adds,
it says the proposed development is
Feet.
5,000 square feet.
Small.
so it adds significantly to the value of his larger property.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the end result, even if he buys it from the city for a song, the combined properties are gonna be significantly higher value for him. A lot of incentive on his part to do this, obviously.
Well, yeah, he wants to do it, yeah.
Yeah. So just if theoretically, the community board recommended that, the site be, there be a restriction on the site that it remain open and have a certain percentage of tree cover, like a high percentage of tree cover, would that impede the owner's current intentions?
You'd probably oppose it.
But
Because they
based
really
on
wanted
its
to
stated
use-
intentions for use immediately, that wouldn't actually get in the way.
Right, no, I'm, you know, this conceptual plan of how the layout of that space would be, you know, makes it look like everything's gone there, no trees, it's, you know, but if you're gonna make it.
You have to make
You gotta-
it
you gotta-
somewhat, people are gonna want to have
Right,
to go
right,
back.
I mean, you're underneath this ramp.
Right,
You know, yeah,
right.
you're gonna have to try and make it nice. So I have a feeling that the plan will change a little bit, but this shows sort of the maximum, because that's what we had to study for the environmental, the
No, I
maximum number of
understand.
people that could be there is how you study those things. So that's why it looks the way it does. I'm sure it will not look 100% like this when, 2 years from now, when, God willing, it gets purchased.
And so where is this in the development, I mean, inside, in the approval process, there's a,
It's a ULURP,
is it certified, so it's.
so certified,
Okay, so-
you have until, I don't remember what day in October.
Okay.
And then it goes through the process, goes to the borough president. goes
Yeah,
to
yeah,
city
yeah.
plan.
So we have to decide tonight and make a recommendation for the October board, for the October board meeting. Okay.
And as I recall, there may be a couple of day gap, but I'm sure the borough president is not gonna do anything.
Well, yeah, we have a clock. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, we do.
Did we know the city planning, did we get noticed, Debbie, that it was certified? I mean, that's a big deal when something's certified and we have a
I
clock.
gave you,
You gave us the notification.
I gave you notice, city planning sent a notice to everybody in the world. You know, with all the elected officials and everybody, it has a big long list of
It's on the
of
website.
attached, but I called when it was,
Yeah.
before it was certified, I called to alert you to it was being certified, so I just wanted to be on the right side of things.
Was it, sorry if this sounds silly, but was it part of the environmental study to see how much crap people throw off of the ramp out of their windows? Cause like, I can see people sit like eating, and then all of a sudden,
No.
people throw stuff out their windows off of the ramp all the time.
No, that has the stuff that, when I've been back there.
You can sit there for like 6 hours to see how much stuff.
At least, when I've been back there, no, the stuff that tends to be there are people
I was gonna say.
bringing it in, not tossing it off. I mean,
Okay.
The bigger
you have to-
problem
you have
is
to,
the
you have to, what, you know, you're on a curve, you somebody have to watch what's going on. But the time, I must say the time, I don't know whether anybody here uses that ramp, but I've been there a number of times and I've never seen a car on it, so I don't know whether it's,
Very, very.
I don't know where you come from to get on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, okay, so you're the one.
And
I don't think the general
Main
public
road
is
seen there.
Right.
Yeah, that's usually what.
But doesn't the city have its current obligation to, if it's a nuisance, to fence their property? I mean,
That's from your mouth to what the city does. No, it's.
no, I mean, I mean, it seems like that's a typical problem that could have been solved.
We have spoken to the city. We can't put any fence around it because it's not ours.
Okay.
The city could, the issue is that 15-foot setback.
Yeah,
You see how the if you look at the green, you look at the red on the. It hits the corner of our building on the right,
mhm.
right? So that there's gonna be an area that people can still go along behind our property that we acquire, between our property and the ramp.
Right.
One of the requirements of us acquiring this property is that we put a fence. So, it's not, even if we didn't want to put a fence, it's a requirement that we have to put a fence. So we have to put a fence around there. So, I don't know what's gonna happen in that 15 feet, but that's still the city, it'll be the city's problem. But, But there'll be a fence and then there's the ramp, so not a pleasant place to be.
All right, any other questions? Okay.
Thank you very much.
you.
Can I ask a procedural question?
Yeah.
October 10th, should I be there?
Yeah,
Okay,
yes.
Well, you'll be notified.
okay, it's gonna be.
Yeah, it will be a public hearing.
Okay.
You will make a presentation and then there'll be public comment. Board members can ask questions and then we'll.
Well, I've already been through that filing line. No?
Second line.
And it's down the street. It's at Sunnyside Community Services.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. All right.
Can we ask the owner to come? Can the owner come?
He's on there someplace.
Oh, okay, he should come.
So he was unavailable to make it tonight, but if you want Mr. Barry to be there, I'm sure he will be. We're gonna put my bed down. Thank you.
All right.
Yep.
Okay. So did we have other guests just come in? What are you here for?
Hi,
Thank you, Van.
I'm Larry Sullivan. We have, we've been, this is my first community board meeting. But we've been, my dad and I started a business on Crescent Street, 39th Avenue, Crescent Street. To serve electrical supply, on the corner there. And we started that in 1979, first in another part of Long Island City, but then we moved to that Crescent Street location, in 82. So I started there when I was like 13 years old. And my dad's now 86 and he sold the business. And we also own the house next to the building. So it's like 7,500 square feet warehouse on the corner and then a single house next to it. And then we have another warehouse down the street on Crescent Street that we're renting out to a nearby hotel. And we've had an apartment building on 31st Street for a number of years, but that was sold.
Isn't that community board one?
Yeah.
Seems like it. Not.
Crescent Street is.
Crescent Street
It's in top.
I do it, it's kind of on the border, I think.
Is it
but
north or south of
it's
Queensborough
business.
Plaza?
Oh.
It's on one side of Queensborough Plaza. I don't know my directions over it.
North. And it's
3905 Crescent Street.
It's not our board.
Yeah,
Oh, really?
north is one. I live on Crescent Street, sorry.
I asked ChatGPT and it assured me that this was the right place.
You came to the right location, just the wrong board.
Oh, so this is community board 2,
Yeah.
and that doesn't include, so it's community board 1, is it?
North of Queensborough Plaza.
Okay, so we're south, we're north of Queensborough Plaza? Well, it was nice meeting you all. Good to meet neighbors.
Good luck.
We're right next door, community board 2.
Board meeting, or was it yesterday? It's very close.
Yeah, all right, I'll check those.
Oh, that's fine. No, there's,
Well, it's-
there's no Wi-Fi.
Oh, that's nice.
It's civic duty to kind of learn about your community boards.
What's your address?
39-05 Crescent Street. And also 25-14 39th Avenue.
So what are you hoping to do there?
Well, we were trying to combine the properties and partner with a developer to build low-income housing, affordable housing. But we need to get rezoned for that, so I was just kind of getting a sense of.
Right down the middle of the block.
Well, it seemed like there was a zoning change that was that ended like halfway down the block and
It's
stopped.
also outside of one
I did.
right? It is
Yeah.
outside of one.
But these folks are from the Department of City Planning.
So-
Oh, really?
It's interesting.
So if you leave your contact, I will give it to the right planner.
Okay.
But yes, low income housing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay.
So I also came in late. I can introduce myself if you like. My name is Brad Lieben and I live in Woodside and I recently started an architecture practice there. And I do well, mostly multifamily housing, and I'm just interested in, the topic of this meeting.
Okay.
So that's why I'm here. No specific reason.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna be moving into a sort of deliberative executive session, so, you know, that's, you know, on the items that we've heard already, but you're welcome to stay and hear if I'm listening.
Sure.
Would like to thank you. Okay, so we're not gonna take any action on this landmark application. I just want to be sure that landmarks doesn't go ahead because they think we've ignored them, since that's happened before. Is there a way we can confirm with them? Yeah, okay. Then, Northern Boulevard, does anybody want to make a motion on the Northern Boulevard application?
Before my time, or maybe right about the board, but I think we rejected this because we didn't want anything related to cars.
Good, yep.
That was the final decision. Actually, I will say the recommendation of the land use committee was actually to approve. So it was a very tight vote. I mean, so that, I mean, the reality is there's sentiments on both sides of the. I think there's a BSA case. It's a very strong. For the findings that you, of hardship that you have to have for the BSA, I think that this application really meets those findings. Lisa can comment if she wants.
No, it's exactly that. It was,
And, you know, it's a very odd little piece of property. It's a very, it is zoned R5, but there's very little that you could build on it. I mean, you could, without combining it with way more properties down the street. And it's a very, unfriendly area for housing, you know, as it stands now. Northern Boulevard is, it's not a place you'd want to live.
Have they made significant changes to what they did that last time? It seems like they made some changes.
Yeah,
They
they're
added
kind
a
of,
tree.
they're very constrained by the circumstances of the lot. And I know that they're right about, yeah, we asked for more green, but
and
the reality
chargers,
is,
car charger.
Did they do the chargers actually?
I think they were back to one charger. We should have asked them that.
I think there were issues they said they had last time
Access.
about access and where it was, where they could put them. But if I remember correctly, I think part of the issue that folks talked about, I think this was back in my chair days, was when folks were saying, oh, but Northern Boulevard is all car dealers. And then the reaction was, yeah, but we don't want it to be. So like, you got to start somewhere. I think that was the kind of reaction people had. But I think what was more interesting to me was your question before Christine regarding, or who asked about how the city of Yes. Oh, Michael, yeah.
Michael did. And that-
Christine asked in June. I just repeated it in September. So
So like, I think
But I
that,
think that would only allow them to revert to a restaurant.
well, any C1 use, right?
I have a little bit more context. I will have to look through the BSA application to see specifically what they're seeking relief from. But they would likely have to do a special permit. So they would end up coming back. I think.
Would that be intentional to do a C1 business there that's not a car dealership?
yeah, of course, something that maybe people that are not far away within biking or walking distance, since there's no parking there, could use, could benefit from. Because the car dealer at that location is probably not gonna benefit people in that immediate community that much.
No, they're trying to basically be a web page.
Yeah, exactly, a webpage in person.
Which is, I mean, my feeling is I agree that I would like to Northern Boulevard not to be a strip of auto dealers, and that if it originally sort of got this special use district, to benefit people for coming from Manhattan who wanted to buy cars, really. But right now, it's, the whole area really needs to be considered, and that my hope is that part of the district study will speak to this somewhat. There's a lot of potential there. There's a lot for change, but I don't feel like this tiny little triangular lot is the place to start that change, or that it's really fair to the owners of this little lot to make them be an area in the home, like, that's not the right term. Be the leader of this change.
But are the owners the car dealer or it's a separate?
It was the Lincoln. is
The
it
owners
still
are the
Lincoln?
part, like, I was just asking Penny that.
It's a franchisee,
Protect
because
their
one of
business.
them is a basketball player that used to play for the Knicks, so it's like a,
John Starks.
yes, thank
Oh,
you.
wow.
Who,
He lived in my hometown.
We
That
did, we
starts-
did explore also the residential
Right.
capability, and it looks like nothing.
Yeah, but if they can't do the residential, but if they could possibly do something else that would benefit the community more, why not go for that? Or at least not vote for it if we need more information.
But
Because if we're just
they're asking like the owner who's in a particular business to be in another business.
Yeah, we're basically asking him to sell the property.
Yeah.
Or just
I mean, and that's-
lease it.
Well, I think he
But
bought the property as a speculation, right? He
Right.
bought the property, wants to convert it to a use that's not allowed, tried to get the zoning changed. That zoning change was rejected. Now argues the zoning has exceptional characteristics that grant him relief to build the property he wanted to build before.
Familiar
Yeah,
story.
he didn't have to buy it.
What did
If
He
it
didn't
wasn't
have to buy
built
it.
for that.
empty and dilapidated for over a decade, the entire time I've lived here. Yeah.
It is a property that's an eyesore. And, you know, we had a lot of conversation then about not parking cars on the street and, you know, putting some trees and some greenery. I mean, at least it's a use.
Can the CLT
Right.
buy it and put it apart there?
Yeah.
Yeah,
But really, the issue is what are we being asked to opine on? You know, we can feel a lot of ways about this and that, which should be there. But
it's just a letter of recommendation.
Doesn't the BSA stage kind of like overrule us?
Yes, it's only a letter of recommendation.
Right. Okay.
Okay,
And there were no SUVs this time, right? Or are there, is that what they're selling again?
Only electric ones.
No,
No,
he said.
50-50.
half electric.
I didn't know if they're gonna say two cars.
An electric death machine versus a gas-powered death machine, fine.
I mean, as a model for selling cars, it's much less land intensive
Yeah.
than all the others on
Yeah.
Northern Boulevard.
Yeah.
So if everybody did that, there would be a ton of developable land for housing on Northern. Boulevard. On both sides, close to transit, you know.
So since it's just a letter of recommendation at this point, so I will say up the street on like 74th, the Capel Mazda showroom, they often allow community events to happen in their showroom. They'll like take the cars out and they posted like yoga in there. They posted like, so maybe we can recommend that they do that to this space. Since we're just-
I would like to recommend we don't approve the variance. I mean,
Oh.
I think it's bad process. Like, if the case was so strong, they should have proposed a variance from the get-go, not proposed we change the zoning. And then when they fail, come back and propose a variance. I think that like that seems like a strange.
I thought it always was.
I mean, I.
No, it came to
you're
us
looking,
first.
They may have just, I don't know, maybe city planning.
To us first and we rejected it, so then they went to the DSA.
It came to us as a zoning.
A zoning change.
This was voted down at the city.
Yeah, we wrote it down and then,
Right.
yeah.
I mean, that's what people do.
So is that a motion, Michael?
Yeah, I think we should get to the heart of it before it gets too late. And have a motion. So I do recommend we do not support a variance. I think we should be really sparing with variances. There is zoning on the land.
Is that the official motion? We need an official motion.
Yeah, my official motion is
I'm sorry.
we recommend that the BSA not grant a variance.
Is there a second?
Second.
Right.
Everybody's motion deserves to be discussed.
I think we heard from our community board last time that they don't want this. So have we learned anything new since then?
No, we heard by one vote they didn't want it.
That was the
That's
full
still-
board. That
that's
wasn't
still
our
what the
committee.
Oh,
board
yeah,
does.
we wanted it the first time.
But the board doesn't want it. City council voted it down.
No, the board,
The
what
full
we
board
wrote,
voted
the
down.
full board vote was lost by one vote. We recommended it.
Yeah.
And the full board, the vote lost by one vote.
But that still means the board recommends that it's not there. Right? Regardless of how,
By votes.
yeah.
Yeah,
And then
Right.
city council voted it down.
Yeah,
So it seems like at this point, not the overwhelming, but the sentiment is they don't want the dealership there. Have we learned anything new since then that would lead us to believe that we can change people's minds or that we want to change people's minds?
Well, it's a different operation, right? But this is more like a web page.
No, same thing.
No, I thought last time it was more like a proper car dealer.
No,
It
they
was
always.
always gonna be a
Place to-
virtual, they were never gonna have cars there that you drove out
It
of.
wasn't pickup if you bought a car?
No, they
No.
were
It
always
was
gonna
dropped
drive
off
it
to
to
your
you.
car.
More like a
Sure.
Tesla.
Drive it to you.
yeah, exactly.
Or it's-
Well, like you said, though, the BSA can do whatever they want anyway,
Yeah.
so we can vote against it, and the BSA can go vote for it, and that's fine.
Right.
Yep.
The last BSA case, I mean, the last case.
So don't we ever want to be at that? No.
But yeah, we have
Only when we
They wouldn't tell me when it was.
Yeah.
Oh, you couldn't come, it was yesterday.
So do we want to just take a vote and move on?
Do it.
All right. All those in favor of the motion, which is to disapprove the application.
And
Anybody's hands up on,
So, sorry, I was late. I had to
Michael.
do some childcare.
Nick.
Are we voting to, yes or no?
No.
Sorry, what is the vote?
We're voting to disapprove the variance.
For voting yes.
So,
or no.
a hand up means you vote to disapprove it.
agree to disapprove the application?
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 in favor of the motion.
Might be 9. I think Tanya was also no.
Yeah, was Tanya counted in that 8 or no?
Tanya's not on here
Yes,
anymore.
she is, bottom right.
Now she is. Did you vote for the motion? Tanya?
Yeah.
You can also use the raise hand
Yes.
feature.
Yeah, my computer got stuck, so.
So it's 9. Okay, all those against the motion? 6, 7. Is your hand up or down, Michael?
6. It's Michael's hand.
Down, I'm fidgeting.
no head scratching during vote.
The motion passes.
Okay. All right. Let's proceed to this Van Dam.
Oh, the new restaurant, right?
The dealer. Yes, right.
Yeah.
The restaurant next to the ramp.
The
restaurant.
Yeah, the restaurant.
So I heard people when they were saying that this is gently in the middle of nowhere, who's gonna go to this?
Yeah.
And I was thinking of Amwell's like 12 years ago, Vinegar Hill and Red Hook. And places that, who the hell's gonna go there?
Yeah,
You
right.
know, people show up.
The Greats of Craft and the Greats of Craft on like 43rd Avenue and 10th or 11th Street, across from Hotel Z.
They're having a street party in a couple of weeks to try and.
Yeah.
raise the visibility.
That's a fair point, but do people go to Red Hook because they're shooting or they're in production? Like the only time I ever go to Red Hook and eat is because I have to shoot there.
I went to Red Hook the other day just to, on purpose.
People make day trips
I-
to
I
like
like
the
it. I would want
winery
to
and
The issue here doesn't
I'd
seem
love
to be
to.
whether this restaurant's going to be successful.
I don't think
The
it
issue
should be
seems
there.
to me that this is city-owned land and do we want it dispossessed? Do we want it repurposed? We want it sold
Yeah.
for a private purpose, or is there some other purpose? That's what's in my mind.
Do we think the city can or will do anything with that land?
Well, we don't, the city has had land that's sat for years and then all of a sudden it became the High Line. I mean, things happen.
Yeah.
I'm not saying, I
Maybe
don't
the
know.
gold line.
No, but I would love to put at least the stipulation on it that it be planted and have tree cover for the whole thing, because there's nothing in that whole area, nothing.
But nobody can use it, that's the problem.
But trees are trees, the birds use it, it absorbs carbon, whatever it does. Tamari.
I just want to say, about this use of it. I think we should not even think, they can use it however they want. So if you're an attorney and you want to go to present to the community board to get approval to buy land, what is the best way to probably get that approval? To look like you're adding something of use to the community, like a restaurant that people can come and enjoy. I think we should just not even consider what their actual use is gonna be.
Yeah.
Because we just have to consider, like you said, Christine, whether we think it'll be better in private enterprise hands or in the public or in the city's use. City's not gonna do anything, I'm sure, with that. It's such an awkward area. But at the end of the day, we shouldn't have, any misconception that this is gonna be used as a wonderful restaurant when they could tear everything down and put a nice big, a couple story building. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. If we should vote on this like we're voting on tearing it down and building up. And if that's okay with us, then we should support it. If it's not okay, then we should not
I
support
mean,
it.
the use they're proposing is ridiculous.
It's so ridiculous.
Who wants to sit outside next to
Yeah.
a ramp, an on-ramp to
Yeah.
a major highway?
It was miserable 9 months.
Nobody.
If you've
I mean-
ever been on the ramp that goes from the Henry Hudson up into the George Washington Bridge, there's like a sculpture. It's not my favorite sculpture, but nonetheless, it's.
Yeah, that would be a nice place for a piece of public art.
But that means we're asking to leave on the table the opportunity for another entity to buy that land and.
No, because if it's not
Saying
mapped,
public art.
it's mapped as it's
be a
mapped as a
public art.
public street. Right now, it's mapped as a public street.
Gotcha.
Lisa.
My nightmare, advertising signs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, true.
Well, they could
Oh,
sell, they
a
could
big
sell.
leaf. They could,
Right.
that
But then
would
they have to
be,
come back to us. They have to demap it.
No, I mean, like, they could.
no, they would demap it, lease it to
Yeah.
an advertising.
Or they could
signage
wait 5 years
company,
after they.
And there'd be one of those right on the LIE.
Oh, God.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
That's lucrative and terrible.
The digital ones
Although
that show
right now,
animation.
having
But yeah, we should think about it in terms of what's gonna happen in 5 or 10 years. Are they gonna just sell it to whoever? And we don't know. But
Or put a sign on top of the two-story building.
My question is related. What's the worst that could happen with M21 zoning in that entire lot?
What's the worst?
The worst?
Advertising sign.
I can,
Two-story building with an advertising.
I mean, I'm not saying this is terrible in and of itself, but a two-story manufacturing facility, if it's a two FAR, that
Right.
occupies the whole lot.
Yeah, so I think that's what we should have in mind. Like, that's the worst case scenario, right?
Well, I don't know I mean, I'm not opposed to manufacturing. I just think that this being publicly owned, there's an opportunity to do something that will benefit the public, thanks, or benefit the environment.
Because we're fighting.
Who would do that? Who would make that?
We're fighting giving up.
Well,
land.
the city could, or DOT could. I mean, public art is, I hadn't even thought of that, but that's actually kind of a neat
Yeah.
location.
Okay, so that's something our community should start. We're finding all the little
But I
random
don't-
leftover public land and putting.
But Christine, when you say that, like, the worst case is that it could be used as this, so if that's the worst case, and it might be a good thing, because it might have jobs, it might
Yeah.
so then maybe we would vote for it, but if we think this would be better, like there's, not too far from there is, Tom's flagpole area. Not that far from there, where he wants the flagpole for the veterans.
Okay.
So it's like, you could have a little route and there could be public art or there could be a bench or what, I don't know. But that's what I think we have to think about.
Battery Bay is like right nearby also, just a couple of the short walk. And it's not like it's so desolate, right? There's the public storage, there's, a couple of businesses around there, like, not a ton. So I mean, I could see it as and I don't feel too strongly about it. I'm just, trying to see the value of, like, if it does become an eatery, there is usage and like Patrick said, like there's low usage now, but again, like, there are people there, right? Like, it's a place to go eat something. There's nothing around there right now to have lunch or something like that. But
Also
that said,
say-
I don't feel too strongly about it. Like, yeah, maybe if we could, I don't know, like a push for like a green space or like a park or something. Which also goes to the question of, if it is a park, if it is a green space, if we think it's too desolate for that, then why have a park there at all, right? So, but that's a different conversation.
We're just gonna say, we should also be reasonable about what is possible for the city to do there in a, relatively reasonable amount of time. Like, they don't seem to prioritize this lot. I don't know what would get them to prioritize this to do anything. If we say no to this application, it's probably most likely gonna sit the way it is for who knows how long.
Right. Well, I do think that if it remains in public hands, then there are myriad possibilities, especially environmental ones, when we know that this is, a community with such severe environmental problems and lack of stormwater facilities. I would want all that to be studied studied for that. And I think if it turned out to be useful for that, then yeah, they could turn on a dime, and maybe the city, there'd be a federal bill that gave a lot of infrastructure money, and the city would suddenly be looking for sites to do this stuff. And if they don't own any land, then they have to go out and buy it, which we know is a problem.
Or can we make manufacturing districts when they build new properties, require them to put green roofs on?
I think they're already required by code to put green roofs on new buildings.
So,
but
another way to get it.
Michael has his hand up.
I was just wondering if I could ask, there was some crosstalk during this point of the presentation, so it was hard, at least for me to hear. It sounded like the applicant was saying something about, I guess, nuisance, for lack of a better word, on the city-owned lot affecting the businesses, which I think are owned, if I'm understanding, like they own the adjacent property. Was that what he was saying? It also sounded like he was intentionally not being really specific about what he saw, but like, do we have a sense of, let's say, whether the city is being a steward of the space, like
Well,
I
it
think
sounds
he was
as though
trying
he
to be
was saying-
diplomatic about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yes, but the city as the owner, it
Right.
does have responsibility it sounds to me like they have a responsibility to either fence the property or maintain the property and monitor what's going on there. So, but that doesn't mean they have to sell it. They have to fulfill their obligations.
Yeah, that's certainly true. Yeah, I was just trying to understand if, I guess, the current use was causing harm to the neighbors, so to speak, but because I genuinely couldn't quite follow the conversation, but I think it was partially trying to be
That is
diplomatic.
what he was saying, as somebody said, diplomatically.
Thank you.
Maury?
Well, and also if his client is like our other guests that were here before, who own some properties and want to kind of group them all together and turn them into one big thing. I mean, maybe their idea is they're going to combine these, they've had them for a while, then they could sell it and it'd be much more, what did they say, 7,500 square feet more?
Yeah, that's a big lot.
Yeah, so then they'd have this big hunk that they could sell all together, and not to say that that's a horrible thing, but we have to keep that in mind if we think that it should be more of a community thing. Yeah.
Does somebody want to make a motion?
Motion to disapprove the application.
Okay.
I'll second.
Do we want to add any kind of stipulation or rationale?
Like a no unless, yeah, I can't think of an unless, but I'm happy to support a no unless.
Well, I would just say no, because we think this property should remain in public hands.
Yeah,
In
there
public
we go.
hands.
Nick had his
That is
hand
the
up.
baseline, yep.
Nick had his.
Oh, sorry, Nick.
Just discussion on this motion. My question here is the sort of elephant in the room here is how much are they going to pay? And he was very much squirrely about that. And it was like, we don't know if it's zero or we don't know if it's $1 million. And it's like, I can't imagine that is really the answer.
Right.
And I'm not trying to get in anybody's way of making money here, but I felt our intelligences were insulted by the restaurant plan, as well as sort of the idea that this is like just useless land. And so like, anyway, all that to be said, I would very much approve a clean motion to deny this application. I think it's just, I really, I don't want to, I think that if it's speculation, they should say it. And like, there's a lot of like writing on the wall about rezoning happening here. And this is, let's be very clear, this is making this lot much more valuable. And 10 years from now, I imagine this won't just be, oh, it could be zero. And so anyway, with that said, I generally don't want to disapprove an application for an eventuality we can't predict, but I do think that it's in the study area or the context area. Like there will be discussions in the next 5 years about rezoning this area. I don't think that we should give this up for nothing.
I'll rephrase my motion to deny.
Okay.
Just quickly to respond to that, I agree with your overall point, but it seemed like he genuinely didn't know what the city would appraise it as, and they would at some point give him a number, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's totally out of his hands.
I get that, but just the idea that that's a reason why we shouldn't value this land and why we shouldn't insist on knowing how much it's worth, and also recognizing the fact that this is a live topic. This isn't an eventual like, oh, maybe we'll think about rezoning this area. It's already under consideration for context for an active study. I don't think that this is like worthless land we should just give to the adjacent property owner.
Is this in the context though?
It's too far out.
It's not even in the context area. It's
No,
not.
it's like on the, like eastern portion of the Masbeth, IBC, so it's too far.
I also just think there's a principle of public land remaining public.
That's very basic. Although we could put it somewhere in your, Debbie, you can ask the city to fence it.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yes.
Go in for a budget proposal or something,
Yeah.
somewhere, right?
Okay. Patrick?
I mean, they could just put a fence on their property.
Oh, yeah, but not on their, not on the public land, on their land. Why didn't we ask them that?
No.
How, we have to put a
Why
fence
don't you
on
ask
the
him that?
property, how's that?
Well, they have a fence between them.
We were all blinded by the restaurant.
Yeah, we like, look outdoor cafe. Like Italy.
Well, let's figure out what, I mean, we don't have it.
All right, should we call, can we call the question and just vote on this? Yeah. Okay, all those in favor of the motion, which is to deny the ULURP application for remapping.
Everybody online, is their hand up? Okay. So there's two that's not voting.
All those opposed?
Okay. Yeah. Motion passes. 12 in favor, 3 against.
Okay. So this moves to the city planning portion of the meeting.
Wait, there's a note here, update on MIH for Barnett, are we?
You know, I think that was an error. I think
Oh.
that's an explanation for the Van Dam, and I think it actually goes back to the previous agenda.
Okay.
Just this. Update on MIH application for Barnett. That was what.
All right, yeah, that I, sorry, sorry about that.
So it was just by.
That was a leftover, sorry.
Oh, it's okay. I was like, did they add more 3 bedrooms?
Right,
Just to tell you. They're like, no, we already building it, sorry.
But actually, Lisa, I just want to ask you, because the question came up, do you know how many units they're building next door here?
Oh. Thought it was like 7 years.
Okay.
But I'm not, yeah, and did they reach out to you, Debbie?
They came up just to talk about their construction that's going.
Because they wanted to come to land use. I know.
But yes, I think they mentioned it, but I haven't spoken to an owner or anything.
Let's invite them for
There's only the
October.
construction guy.
Yeah, so can we invite them for October?
We could try.
you know the developer, right? That
It's, Limley Mall.
Lovely and Wolf, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so, do you have any, I mean, I know there are, do you want to give us an update on what's coming up on our agenda? Well, I'm looking at both of you. I mean, I guess normally that would be Katie's bailiwick, but, apart from one LIC, I mean, so I know we have the PC Richards lot, right? And then I just read about another big one in Long Island City that's looking for rezoning. My husband pointed them to
The
me.
PC Richards lot is looking for rezoning.
What?
What about the PC Richards lot?
No, this was like Crescents. Anyway, it was another,
Oh, the one in Astoria?
no, it was in,
So I guess just to clarify the like updates from city planning item on the agenda, if you want me to project out what will be coming down the pipe in the future.
exactly.
Okay. I did not realize that, so I did not prepare that.
Okay.
I'm more than happy to take it back with me and email out afterward. Understood moving forward, but I did not prepare.
No problem. I didn't, maybe we should have formed, I mean, it's just helpful to us to know in terms of looking at what we have on the table, if you have any insights as to what we're gonna be seeing. But,
Absolutely. I will be sure to do that in the future and we'll follow up with you tomorrow.
okay, no problem.
Sorry.
So then I guess I would ask Kate, I'm saying that right?
Yes.
To sort of explain to us what you had in mind relative to one LIC.
Absolutely. So, first of all, I wanted to. Hi, everyone. I
You could.
I will come up there. I will come up there. Okay, I just want to say, thank you everyone for putting the community board recommendation together, job scope of work, letter recommendation response. So thorough. It has actually been so wonderful because for me, the way that I see it, it's just becoming like a framework for us to work with the understanding of what your desires are and what you want to see with the plan. So it's so exciting. Thank you so much. One of the things that we really heard, and Katie has, we've talked it through since we met you last at the CB2 hearing, was this, I think we want to meet, we will be meeting with you monthly. I will be here, Katie will be here physically every month at a committee, at land use committee meeting. We kind of wanted to talk through her topic, like from going forward, like what in the month of October should we talk about? We have a ton of ideas based on what we hear. And Katie, you can clarify and correct me if I'm wrong, but in October, we're thinking about waterfront. In November,
November, we're going to look towards the public realm.
okay, right, public realm, and then on December, mapping actions. Yes, right. So that's a general topic, but within that topic, prior to meeting, I think it would be helpful if we got some questions to that topic that we can come and address it at the time of the meeting. I know we have slotted 30 minutes, but I can stay longer.
Well, and we also may want to talk, at some point, because this is an issue to the whole board, just like a lot time in the full board meeting, if there's a substantive update.
Do you want to maybe like a summary, like read out?
Or just, well, we can think about that, but, in any case, I mean, the sequence that you just proposed makes some sense. I think the mapping actions need at least 2 sessions because it's a big area that's complicated. I also, or did you have something after the?
No, I was thinking December would be a good time to kind of regroup for 2025. I don't feel like we can be responsive to like what your needs are and what comes up in the plan if we project everything out through to next year.
But I have a question. Because I think one thing that's been really frustrating to me and to everybody is the lack of information and specificity about what work the city really has done. So I need to just ask you, what are you willing to, or what is the city gonna share? Are we gonna see 3D? Nobody can understand a zoning map and know what that really means. And I know that it's really easy at this point to construct 3D models. I mean, all that GIS software, blah, blah, I'm sure you've done it already. I'm sure it's there. So, you know, we need that kind of stuff to be in front of us, to be able to have meaningful conversations.
We heard you. We're talking back with our team. My plan is to share with this board, as much information as we can, like when we get to meet with you. So I understand the frustration has been this, information misshare or impasse or sort of lack thereof. So I want to make sure that this is a space for that, so that when you hear it from other people, you're not like, what? We didn't hear that. So, we would love to do that. I hear you about the 3D modeling. Let me get back to my team. I know that it's been said and I've shared it. And we're still coming to, figure out how we can do that to you. I mean, bring it to you. The other thing I wanna, and I've heard is this cry for, which has been a good cry, for, where are the commitments up front, right? So we are really, we want to share with you what we can up to as best as we can when we come to you. But one of the things that have actually been frustrating to me, because I'm also new here, is, what has the government / city, committed to this board? I'm curious, like, what are the commitments that have been made, especially on the infrastructure proportion? Has there been a legal document that says, oh, so tell me more about that. Like, I want to know. Yes, Lisa. Oh, sorry.
So, you know, before Amazon,
Yeah.
you know, the EDC had this, you know, I don't know, if it's 100 pages, but it was at least 75 pages that committed, you know, $90 million for sewers and $150 million for something else. I mean, I can send it to you tomorrow when I go home.
Okay.
I mean, I have a PDF of it. They did extensive studies and there were firm commitments. Now, you know, Danielle and I have talked about this a little bit, but, you know, it was the understanding was that Amazon, from their perspective, we didn't know this, but there had been a proposal to Amazon and EDC must have been doing what they were doing to prepare for that. So, you know, from the city's perspective, this is going to generate revenue for the city in terms of taxes and jobs, and developers are going to make money. There's got to be some way to capture that for all of these other uses. So anyway, that is the biggest commitment.
Okay, so it was so EDC had shared with you.
EDC has published with a glossy, not shared with us, it's a glossy cover with, you know.
It was in the press.
Yeah, it was in the press.
When many of us were opposing Amazon, we were still being told the commitments will still happen.
Yeah.
Even if Amazon doesn't come, the commitments will still happen in the press.
Okay, thank you for that.
And we also have heard, as regards, sewer infrastructure, that Nydia Velasquez got allocated a large sum of money, for that specific purpose in this specific area, and we have nobody has shared with us how that's actually being spent or allocated or committed to what capital projects.
Isaac.
No, I was just gonna say Carlos mentioned this to me earlier today, your board member and DOT employee. And so I'm gonna follow up on this tomorrow, to try to get some clarity on what's going on with that.
From Nydia's team or?
From my chief of staff, from Nydia's team if necessary. Just happy to follow up on that for you all.
Michael has his hand up.
Not on you. And I'm sure it's in the agency, but I think one thing that this community board, what?
Did Michael have a question? That's what they were saying.
Oh, it's on an adjacent topic. So if there's I don't know if you want to finish this.
Well, as far as infrastructure, I think the community board needs to be really specific and write a letter to DEP no, yes, DEP, and request a major presentation from them on what they're doing. We know that they're doing some big projects in this area with the this new pipe that they're gonna take all the CSOs and rewrap them, you know, and you know, an evaluation of the entire Long Island City area, which are, you know, what is the infrastructure like now? What are they planning? What do they have budgeted? Can it, you know, what future development could it support? But I mean, we're just, we need that. And that's not city plan. That's, otherwise the conversations are just too theoretical, yes.
It's just, I didn't want to, you know, cut that off, but it's just, you know, when you're asking, you know, what do we need also? I find it personally unnerving all the times that I've heard, we can't tell you this, we don't, you know, I'm referring particularly to massives, which I know I personally have been asking for going back now almost a year. And we know that it's impossible to be developing a plan like this without having that information, even in some form. Now, I don't mean to put you on the spot right this moment, but I'm just saying that it's unnerving to simply be told without explanation, similar to how we were told without explanation why the deadline for comments had to be at that particular time. When I really want to make a comment, doesn't need a response right now, but I just wanted to be on your radar that I personally, and I think a lot of community members, find it very, very difficult to work with this process without some understanding of how decisions are being made, what the process actually is. You know, what there, it's not like we have to be there overlooking your work, but it's understanding a simple thing like why can't we see 3D renderings of what this looks like? It's unnerving to me to simply be told we can't right now. I don't know what that means. That's all.
Was it Michael? Somebody?
Yeah. So on a kind of adjacent topic. So I know the one of the proposed topics was public realm, and how that relates. And one of the themes in our feedback was around sort of open space and public space more generally, and the deficit thereof in our board and in OIC. One thing I'm curious about is basically the privately owned public spaces part of the zoning code. Like I found the map of POPs, or is what they're called, and there are like 600 of them, and they're almost all in Manhattan. There's one in NYC. It's the little park outside the City Core building in Court Square, like right by the subway. So that's like a little park. Apparently that's owned by the like private owner, but it's public space. And like I genuinely don't know. I suspect that this kind of provision is related to like higher density development. I don't know if this is interfacing at all with the proposed text amendment changes in the 1LIC plan, but I think it's something that I would love to learn more about, and perhaps other people in the board would love to learn more about, and just to kind of put on the radar is like, is this something we can study? Which parcels do we think would be feasible for creating these kinds of public spaces, parks, and so on? I mean, I was like clicking through the map, and sometimes it's stuff like bike parking. So it's like on the privately owned land, but it's like public bike parking that people can use. But like stuff like that, just to get a better sense of how the zoning code can encourage the kinds of spaces that would address some of the concerns that we raised. But yeah, I mean, I'm kind of coming from a place of ignorance in that, you know, I looked at the map, I see there's like 600 of these, there's one in OIC. Like, is this something we can create more of? Or just how does this at all relate to our concerns? So that's just something I personally would love to learn more about how that could be related to this.
One more thing to add about things that were promised. I believe that there's money somewhere for some kind of transit site at some side yards. Nothing being developed there, just a transit site. I believe our former congressperson appropriated that money and that it's work, and that money is somewhere.
No, the money disappeared.
Yeah, but was around the time of our former governor. So,
Carolyn Maloney had big plans. for
Yeah.
please don't now
Sunnyside
say
Yard.
it in the much less.
Sorry. It was always, you know, it was always part of the Sunnyside train station was always part of the rehabilitation of Sunnyside Yards. And then they spent too much money on Sunnyside Yards and there was no money for the train station. That was my understanding.
Okay. When she was still our congresswoman, she told me that the money was still there and that the then governor wouldn't release it, which made no sense to me because it's two different levels of government. But then everything changed.
It could be either one of those.
It could be any.
So you say they spent too much money on Sunnyside Yard.
Well, you know, they've been redoing the train tracks and it wasn't like, it had nothing to do with Vishaan Chakravarti and his whole plan. It only had to do with the train lines. And that's what they've been working on now for how long? 10 years?
Yeah.
There was
Like
a
they're
train,
mostly
there was a
done.
train station.
Aren't they mostly done?
Yeah, they're mostly done.
One other question that I have is, so the DSOW talked and I guess also, which talks about, you know, the mapping actions, which are part of this ULIP package. And, or not just the mapping, the actions that are part of the ULIP package that are being studied in the EIS, but then separately, a neighborhood plan. And your timeline shows those two things too. I'd like to see an example, if there is one, of what is a neighborhood plan above and beyond the ULIP. Because I don't really understand in my head what in addition to the ULIP we can actually expect to see, or the city has the intention to put out as constituting the neighborhood plan beyond just those actions.
I see, like the holistic umbrella of a neighborhood plan. Because
Yeah.
ULURP is one portion of it.
ULIP's one portion, but there is a whole public realm portion of it that's not covered in ULIP. And, you know, we all know a plan is a plan and it could be, you know, parts of it could be more abstract, like, you know, there will be a need for a park of X size and within this area in order to serve people, but it's not owned yet, you know, but some acknowledgement that the issues have been studied and that this is how they see the whole neighborhood really developing.
My understanding is it's supposed to be a collaborative effort with the community.
Can I add on to that? Because the LIC plan website, when it talks about the neighborhood plan, says that it's gonna include a set of capital program and service commitments as well as policy changes.
Yeah.
Who is leading that? 'Cause I imagine it's not BCP, because that's not what you guys do.
So it's a combination of our city hall and our a partner, some member,
Should we invite whoever's leading that effort to these meetings? I feel like that's really important.
you can invite whoever you want. But I think what we were doing as city planning, we're collecting all of your feedback and bringing it back. And we're also, I feel like I'm also speaking with folks who have experience. We're also taking back all of the comments that we hear and bringing things back to our sister agencies. Like you mentioned BEP. Yes, invite them, of course. We're doing also our best to have them at a closer table as well. So it's a joint effort. The line of communication starts with us first, of course, but you can invite.
I guess my question though is, we see the work that you're doing, we see the DSOW, we know what the ULO process looks like. With these policy and investment commitments, I don't know what's happening, and I don't know if we're gonna see anything until the neighborhood plan gets published a year from now, or whatever it is.
If in
So-
fact it gets published.
Right,
I mean, that's
so-
what's not clear to me.
Yeah, so like, who's leading that? Like, can we get some check-ins, like hear about the progress? Like, have they gotten any commitments so far? I'm very worried about that part of it.
Yeah, I heard that. So we'll add it to one of our months leading into December then.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, can I, So my question to you is how are you utilizing prior studies? Are those, you know, the ones we did for your LIC and the ones we did, you know, I mean, there've been, this is probably at least the third one that's been done here. So how is the scope of work going to be based on any of those studies? Are you using those or they're just redoing those? I mean, we've been, particularly Kenny and I have spent many summers with the Department of City Planning and Alexis Wheeler and whoever was there before, you know, working on neighborhood plans. And it's like, I feel like none of that is in your like brain trust. Like you're not, like we're recreating everything we've done for years now. So I don't know what research you have in your office, but all those studies have been done. So can you answer
We have lessons learned from the past, in terms of, I think specifically, the 2004. I know there was a specific, call for looking at the draft scope of work for the environmental, the environmental review of the past rezoning. In this specific, environmental review, it's my understanding that we have, increased our projected sites versus how we were doing it before, like a decade ago or so. It was a lower number. Now we're like tripling the number of projected sites so that we can capture like the possible realm that could be developed here. So we have lessons learned that we are looking at. Yes. So, and we're also like obviously taking a look at it post-COVID decade into, since we last checked in or rezoned this area. So, and lots of change. So we're not doing a neighborhood plan based on a decade ago. We're trying to do one that's current as well as looking to the future and trying.
But also, I think what we're also referring to is what we've been asking has not really changed. In fact, it's just been more critical that it be responded to because of COVID.
Yeah.
Yet the things that have been coming out over the years don't seem to ever directly address what we have been studying and investing time and effort and reporting out. So I think that's also like a second part of Lisa's question is like, what do you guys do when you see that the board is asking for all of these demands and there's clearly a pattern, there's clearly something that we have been wanting for decades, and it's not being addressed still.
So one of the things that a lot of the applications coming to this board is like piecemeal. Like you have a lot of applications that are private applicants who have like one little, well, not little, but like they have lots.
Which a big part of our ask has been comprehensive planning,
Right.
which has not happened.
Which is happening now with this plan. What I hear is a need for open space, resiliency. What can we do when there's a downpour rain? Like what can that? I'm just thinking, if I was a private applicant and I was asked to address all of those things on my site, it's very challenging to do it. But now we hear the concerns and we're placing them into our comprehensive plan that I want to say is, it's, I think, when we want to address all that. I think when, back in maybe the URLIC comments that you guys had sent, we have taken a look at the concerns and we, in developing in particular the WAP and the waterfront, we understand the concerns and we're trying to address it in the world of zoning as we can. And then where we cannot, then we've actually asked our partners and our agencies like Parks and DOT to come in to help us like form a story that makes sense. So that is, we hear you and I hear you. I think we're trying to put the pieces together so it's not just like one-offs. That's been our main goal. Sorry that it doesn't seem like maybe the messaging on that as well.
No, we appreciate your being here and, you know, I think mean, I think you're hearing a lot of frustration, but obviously we have to go forward and we just want as open a process as possible to make this year constructive. And
We wanna trust the process, you know, because there's been so many processes in which, you know, we're given this carrot that, yeah, we're being heard, and then when something is finally passed, it goes completely over what we've ever requested, so it is a trust thing.
Well, it's also, there's been this notion, you know, the phrase community-based planning has been bandied about. But it still feels like it's top down.
I think what I'm hearing is like the frustrations and also the wanting to understand the why.
Yeah.
Right? That's simply what I'm hearing.
And wanting to feel
to
like a
really
partner,
see, and to really see what we're asking for reflected,
Yeah.
to see what we're asking for actually reflected.
I mean, we do, you know, I believe that things are happening and for instance, I mean, I've heard by hearsay that the city, or maybe it's from some Con Ed connection, that there have been discussions with Con Ed about that huge property, that training center, which would in fact be an essential part or part of that lot, at least. Going, to make this connection, which we all want to make from Queensbridge Park down to Hunters Point and have that all be beautiful. And so to the extent that we could kind of know that that was in the works or that different options were being considered, even if they're not, even if the agreement isn't set in stone, would really be helpful. And
And I think the council member also heard that because I think she had sent the letter out, but several elected signed on in that wanting to come up. So I think she's hearing you, we're hearing you. We're trying to work with Con Ed on what that possibility looks like.
yeah, I mean, and I think and we said this in our comments, the success of, and it's beautiful, of the waterfront development to the south is that it isn't just a walkway. It has this variety of park space connected to it, and we know that there's not a lot of city-owned land here to create those parks. But we think it's really important to create these parks. So figuring out how to do that. For instance, in the LICC proposal, there's a suggestion that somehow if each developer on the private waterfront lots get some sort of bonus by allocating more than just the required waterway to open space, that open space could be pooled somehow to make a larger park at some point. Is that possible? That's the kind of creative, and can the city make a deal with Con Ed where they give them some city-owned property somewhere else? Doesn't seem like Con Ed really needs the water to do with their training. What?
It's the biggest restaurant.
They need what, the water?
I'm just saying kind of,
They want to see that they're.
that's what they told us.
Okay. Well, it's good to know.
I'm not saying it's right.
Yes.
So
That's right.
Next point in that, we are also hearing from not only the community board, but also folks on the ground, as well as, the NYCHA residents, at Queensbridge who want open space that's connected along the waterfront. Council member, she's also been an advocate of this. So, sometime in October, and the dates have been not set. I'm telling you right now, it's the truth, their dates not been set. We want to do some kind of public engagement workshop where we include, where we have a walk shop. It's really a walking shop of us going along the waterfront. So we will keep you posted on like what that looks like, the date, time, where to meet, all the things. Bring your walking shoes, and once we have the dates and the itinerary set, you guys will be you'll see an email blast / information share of what this is happening. And I think that'll be timely in a way, nice, because in October, like I noted earlier, really want to do like a waterfront, beach side with you, so it'll make it probably it's time to sit there.
Okay. And Katie, can you just go over again, you listed a sequence of topics?
Yep, so waterfront in October, public realm, and we just added discussing. Street mapping, I guess we'll do like some program / street mapping in November and then do like a full deep dive on street mapping in December, since you mentioned we'll need 2 sessions there. And then I think we can also kind of discuss maybe some of these like promises in November as well.
Like timeline of commitments at some point.
Okay.
When we. With this that in.
The one other thing I wanted to add in as a topic is I think is the IBC residential area connect or relationship. And because I think it's a goal that is often, it seems to as often as not be honored in the breach. And then when you hear public comments, as we did at the first board meeting, clearly, it's part of the whole history and rationale of Long Island City, and yet it's something that a lot of people just overlook or look at as a nuisance. So I think and Kenny, I thought, had some really good comments about the reality of what happens versus the theory of what happens with regard to existing businesses in this context. So I mean, I think we need a chance to talk about that as a topic.
I just want to say I got to run. Good night, everyone. Thanks for everything.
Just had a quick question. Are we aware that the Long Island City Coalition actually had a similar walk on the waterfront? And several community members were part of that, and there was feedback that actually informed the Hunters Point North plan. So I didn't know if you were aware of that.
Timing of it was about a year ago.
It was, yeah, I think it was about a year in the
It was that.
Yeah.
It was just
Fall, because it was cold.
Went over the bridge.
Yep.
That's right.
The pedestrian bridge at 23rd Street? 21st Street.
Oh.
That was it. Oh, okay. This was all, it started at 44th Drive. And then we looked at the, the various properties along the way up to Queensbridge. Yeah.
So they'd be very familiar with this slide.
But I think it was valuable. I thought it was very valuable.
Good.
And especially because we know the area, but it was like just helpful for all of us.
I think what I'm supposed to, yeah, I think what's also really interesting from hearing this is that we'll have our sister agencies come with us on this walking tour. And I would be really excited to hear and also have us talk through some of the constraints and why development hasn't happened. So it's sort of like setting everybody within the realm of like what is happening currently and why development hasn't, and what we can do. So I think we'll craft it that way. Right now.
That's not necessarily why development hasn't happened. It's not necessarily everybody's choice of topic.
Can I just, on the why development hasn't happened? Just 2 things, and I hope that, I hope that you understand the deep knowledge and history of people who are sitting around this table in terms of engaging with the waterfront and Long Island City and walking up and down, where I'm not disrespecting your invitation to walk, but, we've been walking up and down those roads for, many, many years, and, and like you said, nothing's developed, but for good reason. Because it wasn't planned in continuity. There was nothing that really served the community. They were all one-offs. One was a big corporation that was just going to take over the waterfront. And that might have all been good from a profitability for the city point of view, but we have to weigh, profitability for the city against what the needs of the community are. And I think this community board has advocated for the needs of the community. And you have people who are living in this community on mid-blocks whose homes are, you know, really at this point in danger of just being eaten up. Right? And they're gonna be the last house on the block or the last 4 houses on the block. And this, you know, so, I mean, the bottom line is that, you know, it's not that we don't want development. We want smart and community. We want to create a community, a livable community. You know, a post-COVID place where people can be outside and people can walk on the waterfront. And yeah, I mean, everybody loves Hunters Point South. That was like a, you know, a gift from the Port Authority. But okay, so we can't do it the same way now. But then how can we do it? And the question is, how can we do it? How can you have the developers, you know, give back? And I don't know the answer to that. I'd love to hear that from you all at the end of the day. Like, you know, MIH is never going to do it, right? You're going to hear from everyone on this community board that MIH is not sufficient. We need more than MIH. That's even not the question. You know, the question is, how can we have the developers contribute? Is it Battery Park City? Do everybody contribute to a fund to maintain the park on the waterfront, you know? I don't know the answer to that, right? But that's how, I mean, in my mind, I always see development happening when the developers have to give back for the sake of the common neighborhood. So it's probably more a comment than a question, but you know.
No, I thank you and appreciate the comment. I feel like I'm with you. I'm with you.
Yeah, I don't know how, I mean, you're the ones like, you know, the city is the one who's gonna take the stand for making that happen. We could just say, these are the needs from our community, that from our hearts, we believe that, you know, we listen and we hear what people want, but we don't know how to make that happen. Like, we want you to tell us this is how we can make that happen. We don't want you to come back and tell us, no, we can't make that happen because it's privately owned and they want to make $1 gazillion and they don't want to give back.
Yep.
And, you know, we're not going to do any rezoning now because they're not with us.
Yep.
And also to piggyback what Lisa was saying, you know, if the developers are having to give something back, give something real back. And I'm sure there's some of us here that have, you know, read with William White's Small Urban Spaces, and you know, how many of these places are just empty ghost spaces, to Michael's point before about these public spaces that never get used because they don't want to be used. The developers didn't want them to be used because then they have to maintain them. And you know, how do we really create spaces that make for a livable community? And to Lisa's point about, you know, okay, so maybe the city wants to profit off of it, but you know, if Jane Jacobs told us anything, you make a place livable and then it's lived in, and then that actually gives benefit to the whole community. So maybe that's where we need to focus on.
Right, so we'll go into this in more depth next month.
Great.
Thank you.
I think if we draft a letter to DO, to DEP. if you're supporting that, and that's
To have them come and present here.
just for DEP to sort of step up and talk to the public.
Yeah, I mean, I think we definitely support that. Whether we want to send a letter to have them present.
No, we can sign, I just meant, I was just looking, because I assumed that the council member would support that. It just seemed like there's been an absent presence.
I agree.
Today on the library, huh?
And check it with Nick. I'm thinking, yeah.
That's why.
In the sewer stuff.
I thought it was birthday.
No, Alice, if I understood something, I heard it might be there too. Giving up some of the studios for that.
If I know, yeah. But that's.
What meeting were we at? We're like, are you gonna put signage on the ground? and what picture?
Sure.
Oh, Sarah like.
Okay, Isaac, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Isaac would like to say something to it?
Oh, yeah, so, couple of things. One, we're gonna try to, share the Heart of the District, report next week. We're still working through the details of exactly what that's gonna look like. But of course, you'll be the first to know. So that's pretty exciting. Just to go back to kind of what Kate Young was asking for, Councilmember One would also like the collective knowledge of this community board, Debbie, Lisa, everyone who's been here a long time. Send us any documents you have on past commitments, large and small, for any rezoning, any action. It sounds like we talked about a few of the big ones, but we didn't get like commitment letters that were written to Jimmy Van Bringer when he took office. So, you know, for instance, LIC ramps, the Foursquare Library, we're aware of, but if there are other commitments that were made and have not been completed, we're trying to compile a list. I don't know if anybody has any thoughts on how we can work together on that. Love to hear it. We can also talk later.
Okay, we will look at our funds.
Like the city needs a process for that overhaul.
Totally agree. Totally agree. Yeah, these are just in letters and then there's change of administration and they're forgotten about staff leave. They're not told everyone. Yeah.
How much response did you get for Heart of the District?
How much response?
Yeah, that was like a survey, wasn't it?
Yeah, we got like, I don't want to give you the wrong number, but I think it was like maybe 1,300 survey responses. Total, the survey was very robust and through some outreach, we ended up getting what we think is a decently representative sample for that aspect. And then Hester Street also provided other analysis along with that. The in-person meetings, sadly, Hester Street has since folded and actually.
Oh, wow.
Which is like real. Yeah, been it's kind of working.
Yeah.
Did they really, like, are they finishing the projects or are they just closed the door?
There's still a couple people working there. So like you can get questions answered, but they laid off a lot of staff and are sunsetting a lot of things they're working on.
So the report is really gonna be the final report.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, for this. If there's another step, we'll have to figure that out later. And then I'll just add, sadly, I want to tell you guys that I am actually leaving the council next week. So Friday will be my last day. We've been planning for it for a few months. Laura Singh has been volunteering some of her time. She'll be coming on as land use director and we'll be attending these meetings.
I hope it's not us.
I've appreciated working with all of you, especially Mary Ann and Debbie, so.
Thanks for putting us to that.
You guys have been so great.
Oh, yeah.
It's 7 minutes. Well, thank you, Isaac. Yeah.
Sunny side, I live in CB2. Now you can hear from me about traffic lighting.
You could be a part of the board.
You could be a public. Okay, motion
To adjourn?
all those in favor? Okay, everybody enjoy the end.
We have a-
So, the